Cobblestone on Main at 109 West Main Street in the village of Webster. Nicely decorated. It's the perfect escape from the holiday madness. You know, you're running around, you're trying to get your kids to their different concerts. Maybe you got end-of-year banquet kind of things. You're rushing all over the place. Take a break. Go to Cobblestone on Main. Seriously, it'll recharge your batteries. They have an upscale bar, and they have a fantastic winter cocktail menu. The food is fantastic there, locally sourced, and you could slide into their intimate dining room, have dinner, and then retire out to the bar, and a lot of times they have live music. Well, how will you know? You go to their Facebook page, Cobblestone on Main, right there on Facebook. Little escape from the holiday madness. At 109 West Main Street in the village of Webster and online at cobblestoneonmain.com.
From the Mac of All Trades studio in Fairport and driven by Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, it's Billified, the Bill Moran Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for getting your pod on. Thanks for telling a friend. That's how we spread the word about the pirate ship. Man, this guy, Charlie Fitzsimmons. I met Charlie. Okay, so that was you. You know what's so weird is, so I forget who I was telling the story to. It was Uncle Raj, it was the 20th anniversary yesterday of his murder, which I have an unpopular opinion on sometimes.
Oh, how so? You're for it?
No, but I'll say this because we're 20 years past. Yeah. I think at this point I'm okay.
Right.
So years ago, I would drive Raj to meetings when Stanley was the program director, and we were all there, and we would meet at Stan's house on Harvard Street. Raj would ask me to pick him up, and we'd go over and do this. And there was a time in the studio that he had left his sweatshirt like on the chair, and he was out doing production, and I moved it, and his gun fell out.
Oh.
And it was just in like a zip-up sweatshirt, not in a holster or anything, just in the side pocket of this thing. Yeah. Just fell out. I fucking almost shit my pants. I don't know. I'm picking the thing up like
it's so heavy.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. So I said to him, hey, I'm really sorry. Your gun fell out. I didn't know what to do. So I'm basing it on this.
Yeah.
They've never been able to find anybody.
Right.
Nobody really knows what happened. He did own property and he was collecting rent.
Yeah.
But is it possible that the gun went off and hit him in the abdomen?
Oh.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't.
Not on purpose, but a pure accident. Could something have happened? Could he have been startled where he had the gun, he reached for it to do something? And I only say that because, and it sounds terrible, and you're blaming the victim kind of thing that people always say with this, but there wasn't any secure way. It was just, only from my own experience, it's just, you had a zip
in a backpack.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was in the side pocket. And if that's where you kept it, right? And he was shot in the abdomen. Is it possible that you reached inside to get it and accidentally it went off?
Yeah.
And no one
and
really
also,
could tell.
Who would want to shoot that guy?
He was the nicest, sweetest guy.
He was the nicest, sweetest guy. He bailed me out.
He bailed you, really?
Well, just with the morning show, because I had to get up.
Yeah.
And he'd turn over the mic to the Wease show, and I was the producer at that time. And I was 23, 24. So getting up at that hour was, that was half the challenge. So I'd come in on two wheels sometimes and late, 6:05, 6:10 or something. Yeah. And he'd be giggling, and he's just so sweet. I got you. Go do your thing. And then I'd come in, he'd put on Freebird, a real long song. And then I'd come in and, where are my notes?
That's, so he was
20
the one.
Years.
Yeah, it was 20 years that he died, and it was so he would sing to Panama's. He'd sing Moranimal, and then I asked you if you'd do it. And you went in
that?
That's it was him. It was his thing, and then you produced that thing, and then I used to use it all the time.
That was a good one.
But what I find most fascinating with you is you have the Midas touch. It's like now I know that I'm looking from the outside and we see all this stuff. But I knew you through radio. You had produced the Brother Wease show. Super talented, very creative. You went and started doing the production and they really wanted you to stay. And it was around that time that you left, and no one really knew what's Charlie going to do. And there was talk of he's going to open a restaurant bar. And I don't know what your brother Phil did, but what I remember was he's from L.A. or went to L.A. He was a corporate guy. He's coming back. Yep. They're going to do this thing. They're going to open up. And it was a long time. It seemed like a long time. And I only say that because our mutual friend, Tommy Millet, used to look for restaurants that had opened and closed before you even opened yours.
Son of a
bitch. And then Tonic opens.
Yeah.
And to me, you built the East End. You were the anchor of what became the East End Entertainment District and really, I think, proved that was a viable area.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that the housing and everything was kind of, you showed it, others came down and did it as well.
Well, I thank you. We went from 0 to +1. There was nothing down there.
Yeah.
So
right.
I guess we were the first ones. We had success. But
that place would get
You reminded me of so many stories, so I'll bounce around. One thing before I forget, the gun thing. Did I ever tell you about when Wease and I went to? Did you hear that story?
I heard it.
It wasn't that. It's not that.
No, it is. It is because
so we were
where you were
when I was producing. We were with Wease. We got the opportunity. He had a good friend whose name's going to escape me, but he was the film critic for USA Today.
Yeah, it was Rex.
Yeah.
Reed. No.
Rex Reed, I think,
was the party
the super guy.
Yeah. Yes, he was. No, this was Marshall Fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marshall Fine.
Yeah.
So we got the opportunity to go down, and I was sort of his +1.
Uh-huh.
So we went to New York and got to go to the Rainbow Room for this, kind of smallish party. There were it looked like a decent sized wedding.
Okay.
But Paul Newman's there, Robert Redford. It was Pulp Fiction time.
Oh.
So all those people were in there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was really fun. That was like that Saturday.
Okay.
And I forget what table we're at, but it was really, really cool. But the night before, we went to this exclusive invite-only cocktail party, like on the Upper West Side. And at that time, I don't know if it still is, but you couldn't have firearms in New York City. It was a jailable offense.
Yeah.
Like a felony.
I think even if you go back, if you remember Plaxico Burress, the football player for the Giants, you need an additional license in New York City to carry a concealed weapon. So you can have the New York State concealed weapon, and then you need an additional license for New York City.
And it's no joke. It's
it is
like
not
you
a
don't
joke.
Get fined.
Oh, no.
You go to jail.
They don't fuck
Plaxico
around.
Burress, he was off the team.
Right. Shot
so
himself
we're in
in
this
the leg.
fancy, small cocktail party. It's like a 3-bedroom apartment. And we didn't really know anyone, so we're sort of huddled together on this little couch, just checking people out. And at one point, Wease was getting up to go get a cocktail or food or something. He's like, bro, save my seat. So he gets up to lean over. And by the way, most of the people are skewed pretty old there.
Okay.
So back in that time, I'd say, I'm 24, 25. So they're all mid-40s to mid-60s. There's not many young people.
Right. And probably, I'm going to say, almost blue blood. It sounds like, if I remember, like...
Helen Mir.
Yes.
Yeah, she was there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know a lot of the people, but it was definitely... it was money people, right?
Yeah,
you had to,
and some of it's old money, some of these people, right? That would,
It was old money.
Yeah. There's a difference.
We're kind of sticking out. Well, more so. Well, I had long hair, and I'm the youngest by a good 15 years. It seemed, other than the wait staff. And I have long hair, so like, who's this guy? And then they find out I'm nobody. So Wease is getting up, and he's leaning over, and boom, boom, and I go back to that when you picked up Roger's gun.
Yeah.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they are.
They're a little compact.
Well, I never had really held that.
I hadn't not that often. So he gets up, and boom, boom, there's this noise, and slide across on the hardwood floors is a gun. I had no idea he was carrying a gun. And by the way, Wease, in these Blue Bloods, has his sleeves pulled up, and he doesn't have, maybe 2 square inches that it doesn't have ink on it.
Right.
And, he looks, he doesn't, at that time, he didn't tattoos weren't all that big. So
They
it
were
wasn't
not.
like movie star. Or
Yeah.
It was sort of like, who's this dude?
Right.
And the gun slides over, and the look on these people's faces, they're mortified. Not even just, they suddenly went from, oh my God, to I'm scared. Like, and I
He
can't
looked
stop
like a biker.
laughing.
You know, he looked like a biker,
He
and
did.
he's got a gun.
There's
It's
some
like-
Hell's Angel sitting there with a gun.
Exactly what it would be like.
And it changed the whole mood, and it was just so funny. He was so funny because he was so ridiculously uncomfortable and laughing. We couldn't get out of there.
He picked, I'm assuming.
He picked it up, and kind of stuffed it in, and you could kind of see news was traveling pretty quickly, but we got out of there. That was the one thing I want to comment. Then the second thing you're talking about, opening the restaurant.
Tonic?
Tonic.
Yeah.
And you were saying it seemed like forever, and it did take forever. But back in those days,
Well, I thought it took like 11 months. If I'm, and I may be
that's
wrong.
Probably, that's
I don't know
probably a
why
pretty
that
good
stuck
guess.
because I would argue with Tommy.
Yeah.
That because there was a place in Penfield that had opened, then closed. And he goes, "Hey, let's see how many places we can find that opened and closed before Charlie even opens." And we were laughing our asses off. And then I said to him, "Well, that's not really fair." And then there was, look, you're building out a space.
Yeah, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you're hiring. Yeah, okay.
I think that was it.
Sure.
I honestly thought, because I would tell people like about 6 weeks. And, some people I know better than others would be like, you should just call it 6 weeks. Because every time I see you, you say 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But it took a really long time. And really because I didn't know what I was doing. And I think that was almost a blessing too.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Oh boy, I'll tell you,
because I wouldn't have,
so.
if I known, I think, if someone laid out in front of me, this is how long it's going to take, this is how much it's going to cost and all that stuff, I probably wouldn't have done it. But, you just kind of charge ahead and eventually opened it. Oh, but I want to tell you, at that time, I was trying to figure out a way that I could get fired and get some money while I switch over and become full-time bar guy.
Yes.
And it was so funny because I had no idea what I was doing.
You were fighting with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the time we had a program director,
Yeah.
Harry Jacobs.
Harry Jacobs.
And Harry was a guy that was very
douchey.
into Harry. Harry did things. No, that's fair.
Well, in
I have to be
retrospect,
careful.
I gave him a hard time because he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy. He was just different.
He would, but he would do things like we talked about it on the podcast at one point, where he would call her 9. Basically, he would invite her up, have her wait in the lobby, and then have everybody tell her what she looked like because he wanted to date her. He would start conversations with women and then invite them up. They'd be in the lobby, and he was only on from 4 to 6 p.m. But that was like his dating hours, and like he would meet these women and they would come up, and some of them were.
Caller 9.
Yeah, it was like Caller 9. He dated Caller 9.
Yeah.
But I remember
and they come up and see him and be like, thanks.
You did. I remember you changed the production hours. You were there from 6 to 3.
Oh,
and man, at 2:59:30, you were out.
This is hilarious. Yeah. So what I was trying to do, and I'm no good at it because I don't know, it's just out of my DNA, to try to get fired. But somehow I got that stupid idea in my head, like, well, if I get fired, I can still make money through unemployment insurance, which I knew nothing about. And then I could go jump over and start doing my restaurant or the bar full time because I was worried about making money. I had a smarter friend in college that was in labor law at the time.
Okay.
So I call him like, how do I do this? And he was, he wasn't an attorney for that long, but he gave me some points on like, here's what you need to do. No matter what, you can't quit.
Okay.
You have to get fired.
Yeah.
And that's, that's justification for being able to collect unemployment. So I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And he's like, well, just, essentially start being a dick, and then one of the other things he said was, you got to follow the rules.
Yeah.
But claim that they're making the environment there difficult for you to be able to do your job.
Okay.
So I'm
So
like,
like a
okay.
toxic work environment.
Yeah. Like,
But
back
this
then,
is like before that
this
label.
is way before.
Yeah, it was.
This is like,
Wow, this is genius.
It was
I had no
hilarious.
idea there was this much
This
planning
was
in the
back-
exit.
Full planning, and the execution was terrible. But that was kind of building up to it. I'm like, okay, well, listen, I'm not coming in until this time because blah blah blah. So I'd only come in at a particular hour.
Yeah.
And then I would say that people coming into the studio was making it difficult for me to be able to do my job. So you can't come into the studio
yes.
except for certain hours.
Yes,
Remember the sign?
yes.
It was like, you can't enter.
Oh God, I do
And I'm
remember.
so bad because at my core, I'm actually a pretty nice guy.
Well, you are, and everybody loved you there.
Well,
I mean, they legitimately loved you, like how creative you were. So they were doing everything they could to save you. And then I remember the GM being all confused as to what was going on. He didn't understand.
I had to have
this is awesome.
I had to have somebody in the organization to be kind of my foil. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yes.
Like I had to blame someone.
Yeah.
To make the environment that I was not, in such an environment that I wasn't able to do my job. So Harry Jacobs
Perfect.
was the enemy.
Yes.
And
So
and
great.
it was tough for me to get that mad at someone,
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I feel kind of bad. But so I was making Harry Jacobs the person that was making my job unable to do. So, and I remember at one point, time was ticking because we were getting close to opening. Not so much opening the place, but I needed to spend more time there because we were at there being the new bar because we're hanging drywall.
Yes.
And,
So you're doing all the
wire.
Were you doing all that?
Oh my God, it was and I knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
I was middle class kid out of Brighton. My dad
Right.
was he was an attorney, but self-employed attorney. So we would hire people to hang drywall, and then part of the deal was we'll give you the job if you let us work with you.
Okay.
So my brother would work with like the electrician. I'd work with like the drywaller, and then I'd figure out how they did it, or I assumed I figured it out, and then we'd let them go.
Okay.
And then we do it ourselves.
Okay.
So I was getting to a point where, that's like tradesman school 101 weekend class. So it got to a point where I'm like, well, I got to get over there and work. So I got to get fired, I got to figure out how to do it. So I remember finally we set up this meeting with, who's the little guy that
Bob.
Bob.
Yeah.
He was a good dude.
Yeah.
And I set up a meeting with him to saying, drawing the line, I can't work here anymore. This environment is too bad. So I'm in there with him, and he's like, dude, what's the deal? And I couldn't let on.
Yeah.
That I was coached that way, that you can't let on, and obviously. So I'm like, this guy's just made it. He's created an environment that's, made it impossible for me to do my job. And then that's where we went into like, okay, I'll limit your hours. No one can come see you. You can just work 9 to 5. You can do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then part 2 was I had to get in there with him. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, and I just kept reciting this line, he's made it, he's created an environment where I can no longer do my job. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, are you talking to an attorney or something? You sound like a complete tool. And eventually,
Did you crack?
I cracked. I just couldn't.
What
I'm
did
like,
you say?
I don't know. I'm just, he's smarter than me. He's a bright guy.
Yeah,
and
he
he's
is.
like,
He's a
I'm
very
not
good
gonna let
businessman.
this-
He really
Yeah,
was, yeah.
he's like, I'm not letting this, hairball tell me what to do. So he just eventually smoked me out,
Yeah.
And I end up leaving. But it was very funny.
Did you? So how? Yeah, what
And I
was
paid
the,
for it, by the way, in karma.
Yeah.
Employee relations and
Oh,
trying
wow.
to get, I'm like, ha.
So
Smart guy.
you leave. When you left,
Yeah.
you didn't get fired.
So I didn't get fired. I don't even know if that would have worked. I don't even know. At that point, I didn't know what the heck I was talking about. So I left and went over and kind of finished building out the restaurant and got into that stuff and figured out neither of us knew how to run a restaurant or build a restaurant. Or operate a restaurant.
Why this? Why the move from? I mean,
don't
you're
know.
Okay.
I was just that kind of guy that I would.
How old are you at this point?
I was 27.
27.
When I made that switch.
Okay.
I think we opened when I was 28. But you know, I never really had a concern of making money or being successful or getting the things I needed, you know, in life. Like, and I didn't have a high bar. It's not like I needed a big house or, you know, I was just sort of like someone that would, oh, this seems kind of cool. And I liked creative stuff. You know, I like being in radio, not the sales side, but the creative side.
Yeah.
I like building things.
Yeah.
And I really didn't, I wasn't a good student.
Really?
I wasn't an applied student. You know,
Okay,
I wouldn't do homework. I'd just take people's notes.
You went to
I'd cram.
McQuaid.
I went to McQuaid.
Now, I have a son who went to McQuaid. I wouldn't say that McQuaid was maybe not necessarily academically harder than any school in the area. It just gave you a lot of work. Like my kid was in an AP English class where they were reading and discussing a book. Yeah. But you also had to read 2 other books and write 3 papers on each book. Had to have a paper. That's a tremendous amount of work for high school.
I think that's increased though from when I went.
Well, this was an AP and Jordan wanted to prove to the world that he could do whatever.
And I mentioned coming into the podcast, my kid's a 6-year-old, 6th grader.
Yeah, which is, I think, the smartest time to start. It's a really great environment for it. And I think it's great for boys to, you know, less distraction, a little more focus. I think it breeds more competition, which I think is good.
Yeah, a healthy competition.
Yeah, a healthy competition.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was when I went, it wasn't quite so developed. You know, like now it looks like an academy.
It does,
you know?
yeah.
When I went, it was a Catholic high school.
Okay.
So the workload, you know, I had nothing to base it off of, but it was manageable, and I got by with C's, you know, C pluses and stuff like that. And then the only college I got into, the only thick envelope was John Carroll University. No offense, John Carroll, sorry. But which I hear is getting more and more difficult.
Yes, it is.
That's a Jesuit school.
Yep.
And so I think they had kind of like this agreement with McQuaid, you know, they'll take us. Yeah. And that's sort of like that Catholic Christian, you know, give us your week, you're unwanted, you're scorned, whatever that is.
Well, Jesuit schools and Jesuit institutions are considered academically superior to most, you know. Yeah. I mean, one of the best, I think, in Chicago, is it Loyola? Probably. Yeah, Jesuit school, really, really highly rated. And like I was hoping my kid would go on to a Jesuit college. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's some, I applied to them, some of the nicer ones.
Yeah.
And I was telling someone, because I'm at that age now where our kids are starting to look at schools and apply to schools, and you're learning about, you know, where do people want to go. And but when I was applying, remember it was like $30 an application, which was a fortune. Yeah. And I had to pay for them through whatever. And my parents would help me out with some of the applications. But it got to a point where my dad would be like, what are you doing? You know, that's a waste of money. You're never going to get in there. Really? He was like, can I have $30 to apply to, I don't know, University of Vermont? That'd be like a reach for me back then. So I applied to maybe 9 schools, and I didn't get into any, or 8. Yeah. I got into one. I went to John Carroll. But, and John Carroll, even, I was just, you know, I could manage the system and get by. Yeah. And I love the experience, but I wasn't a student, you know. Yes. Sometimes I think I would like to go back, but then I'm like, you know, a zebra and his colors. I'm like, you know, I do it for a week. I go, this sucks. Yeah. I wouldn't study. I just didn't have that.
But there's a difference, because I think like they've done studies with young kids where they have kids do a test, and then they say to them, wow, you're so smart. You really did great. And they tell another group of kids to take the same test. Man, you worked so hard. Your effort was amazing. And then they give the test again. And the kids that were told about effort scored higher than the kids that were told how academically superior or smart they were. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. This is a psychological study I was just reading about. So it's always about effort. And when you think for yourself, one of the things I always said about radio was there was nothing tangible at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You didn't have anything tangible. You sort of did in production when you were doing that. You had something you could look at. I always liked working with my hands, and I had done construction stuff in high school and a little bit in college that, at the end of the day, if I hung a door, I could look back and do that. And there's some personal satisfaction in that. So as I'm hearing you talk about, building out Tonic, you can look at something and see the progression.
Yeah.
And as you get further and further into it, it evolves.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to have this here. It's going to look better over here. And the bar is going to be, I'm just saying that things change along the way.
Yeah. And
you're doing it yourself. And I go back to, you talked about being naive, kind of going in blind. Mm-hmm. The greatest thing, and I've experienced this with the podcast, it's been a year, no rules. Right. There are no rules. So that way you don't know the barrier. The other thing I would always say to people is, and a mutual friend of ours did this without even knowing it, but I always go, if you have an idea, don't tell anybody about it, because or just some people who are going to be sort of supportive, because people are going to come to you and go, Charlie, open a bar?
Yeah.
What happens in bars? You guys get drunk, they lose, they never last, you lose your money, you're pissed away. And so you get all that doubt in your head. Mm-hmm. And I'll always go to people who go, Al, I go, wait, hang on a second. I'll give you a biblical answer. Jesus used to say, heal people and go forth and tell no one. The reason is because they're going to go, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Right. You'll be dead. You'll be in the ground. What are you talking about? And so I'll just tell you, I'm starting the podcast and I'm thinking of doing stuff. And my exit from radio was a little traumatic and it had little bumps. And I get a call from our old friend Bull.
Yeah.
And he goes, what are you going to do? And I said, I had just ordered all this equipment. I said, I'm going to do a podcast. I was doing that.
Yeah.
I was doing it Bull in the basement. And
good luck.
Yeah. And I was like, fuck, had I had that conversation before I ordered the equipment, I wouldn't have spent the money.
Yeah.
But
then you're like, it's Bull. He's kind of a loser. No, I'm kidding. Bull.
I always like Bull.
Love you, Bull.
But so it was just an interesting thing. And I would think you probably had to run into that.
Constantly. My dad pulled me aside and go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like a bar.
Yeah.
You went to McQuaid, you're going to John Carroll, and
yes.
It just wasn't, it wasn't in our family culture. I don't know what.
So you really, so this was just something that you and your brother thought, hey, let's try it?
My brother was smarter my brother was kind of like, Family Ties. Who's the young kid? Michael.
Yes. Yeah, Michael Keaton or
Michael Keaton.
No, I don't know his name.
No, but I was going to say Michael Keaton.
That's not the name, but I know his name.
He would, he was a go-getter. So he come down, for school. He had the tie on, and he's all ready to briefcase, that kind of thing. And he was very successful early on in life and got the jobs and hustled and all that. And I was kind of the goofball on the side. Didn't have a path sort of thing.
Yeah.
And eventually he circled back. He was in advertising. Yeah, he was in LA working for BBD&O, I think is an agency. And then he was running a division of Johnson & Johnson, the Vistacom, which made disposable contact lenses. And he was young at that time. When I go back and do the math, I'm like, damn, that kid was successful. So I think he had kind of had enough of that and was like, I miss just kind of messing around and doing stuff. So he kind of quit his job or got fired or both. I think he used my tool. He went in there and said,
I can't do my job.
I can't do my
job. Was Harry Jacobs there as well?
He was. And he said, Mr. Jacobs is there. I think he was about as successful as I was at it. So he ended up quitting his job and joining a rock band down there and growing his hair out and just being, kind of goofing off for a while. And then he eventually was planning on coming back up to Rochester. And that's when I was in radio. So I was probably 26 and he's 5 years my senior. So he's probably 31 around that time. So we started looking for to build like an ad agency, a little creative house.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then I would sort of head up, I guess, the radio side.
Well, just the creative side.
Just the creative side. I didn't know about the business side. And he had the business background. as marketing director and go that. So we started looking for spaces, and then we bumped into this restaurant or this space on Alexander on the second floor that was Gup Signs. And prior to that, it was Snyder. Pardon me, Gup Signs was lower. It was Snyder Auto Seat Cushion, which no one knows about.
Yeah.
And we walked in, we're like, damn, this is a nice space. This would make a really cool bar. And that was it. Really? So we abandoned our whole ad agency plan. Like, let's just build a bar.
So how do you survive then those 11 months? Are you?
Well, you mean through the build out and that?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just living, like,
we live like,
yeah.
peasants,
But did you
hand to
hustle?
mouth.
I mean, were you doing other jobs for people?
I don't really. We didn't really have other jobs.
Yeah.
We just, we raised a little money.
You did get
to be able
some
to buy
capital.
drywall.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we weren't broke, but we, real shoestring budget, driving around a little van that would break down.
Yeah.
Sharing an apartment that was pretty beat down, but it was okay at that time. It was just you.
Yes.
And your goal. I wouldn't
Right.
say a dream. It wasn't like a dream of mine, but that was the project at hand, and
Yeah, because
you make it happen.
It costs money to open these.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, it's funny because I'm building another black and blue, our second black and blue in Boston right now. The grease interceptor, which is you got to pipe all your sewage through this thing that takes grease out. We had to put it out in a parking lot in this new place in Wellesley, Massachusetts. That portion of the restaurant build out, digging out the parking lot, throwing this thing in there, was more expensive than the entire Tonic
No shit.
build out.
Really?
Months and months. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Just that
the
one little
sewage.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I guess I bring that up only because you just did it on,
So Tonic
Shoestring
opens.
budget and
It was a smash.
it was.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the place to be.
Yeah. It was just good timing.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do, we wanted to have a fun sort of nightclub, but we
Yeah.
wanted to keep it upscale
Yes.
because both my brother and I, McQuaid kids, and you had to do, you had, I forget all those dances, but anyways, you were brought up a particular way
Yes.
with manners
Yes.
and certain decorum, and we appreciated that. We still like going off, but we wanted to do it in a little bit more of a upscale is the wrong word, but
No, but
a more polite way.
Yes. It was not
safe way.
Yeah,
or-
you weren't walking into some casual. It was casual, but it was the place to be seen.
Yeah.
So people were.
Yep.
You were coming out in your hippest clothes,
Yeah.
looking your best, doing. Yeah. You
and we
want
have a
to.
simple philosophy is just you got to get good looking women in there.
Okay.
And so you built a pretty place.
Yeah.
It had to be safe
Yes.
for them.
Yeah.
And it had to be, sort of glamorous, so they could dress up and come in. And if you provided that, everything else would fall into place.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Right.
Get the good looking girls in there. I don't think anything's really changed all that much. But so we would have we had like 15 bouncers.
Yeah.
And we never had fight. Well, we would have occasion, but for years, I don't think we had
Nothing.
and this is where it's a hardcore nightclub thumping,
Yeah.
bum, bum. And rarely did we have an altercation. I think one that comes to mind, one altercation was actually when Korn, the band, was in there. And he was hitting on some local guy's girlfriend.
Okay.
And Korn, the lead singer, I don't know his name, he had like bodyguards or something. And the boyfriend of the girl was, obviously perturbed, pissed off. So he kind of confronts it, and then the bodyguard gets involved, and then our local boy beat the bag out of this guy quick. And that was like one altercation we had, but we got rid of him quick, and even a guest that may be inclined at another spot
Yeah.
to have a dust up or cause trouble or they would come and they'd behave differently.
Yeah, it was. You're right. That's
true.
true.
They would just subscribe to what we're doing.
Yep.
We saw the most Moet, and I don't know, this could be bullshit, but we were in Rochester, sold the most Moet and Chandon White Star champagne. Because it was kind of trending that way.
Yeah.
And we would pop cases and cases and cases of that stuff. It was hilarious.
I used to get that still. Well, I don't know about still, but that was even like you must have raised the bar because I always went to Thirsties.
Yeah,
like since I went to Fisher.
Yeah,
and I always loved Thirsties because the guy that painted my house would be sitting next to the Wilmots. Or somebody who owned a dealership. Like it was just, and I always called it like a tree fort because it was mostly guys in there. Yeah. But when their wives would come in, it was always White Star that they were drinking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they kept it in the back, and you would get a glass, which was rare at Thirsties at the time to get a glass.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anything.
So all this, so Tonic is how many years? 5?
It's funny. It wasn't long. I think we opened in July of 1998, like July 11th or something in 1998. And
what was the first night you opened up? Nervous?
Oh, it was a shit show.
Why?
Because we were so busy.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
We ran out of everything.
Okay.
So ran out of beer, ran out of ice,
why was it
cash,
so? Why is it so busy? Like, how did people know about it? Even
I don't. I think people used to say like, "Wow, that was a really smart marketing technique you had of dragging it out." And telling people you're going to open soon, and the excitement kept building, I guess.
Yeah.
But
because there's no social media at the time.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think
you can do a coming soon and nothing.
It's word. I kind of missed that.
Yeah,
that was
that's
it was
a good
sort
point.
of mysterious. And
word of mouth to me is still the biggest thing.
And paper invites. Hey, you got to get to. Yeah. And I think probably had some residual effect or impact at radio. Where's Charlie? No, he's opened a restaurant, and he said. So I think that may have.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Still, but yeah, we opened up, and it was just a absolute mob scene, and so you would close and figure out, and we were only open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so. You'd figure out the next day or the days off what you need to do to react, ice or more bouncers or all that kind of stuff. But we were lucky. We had success. People were digging what we were selling.
So that's July 11th, 1998. It opens.
Yeah.
When does it close? Because I remember then I thought did your brother own a place called Pearl?
Yeah. So we opened that together.
Together.
We opened that in 2002. So we started.
And you still have Tonic.
Still have Tonic.
Yep.
And we decided to do that across the street. We were doing food at Tonic, and actually our opening chef was Tony Galassi.
Oh, really?
From Max.
Yeah.
Phenomenal chef.
Yep.
Max of Eastman and Max's Chop House. And so he helped put our food program, because we quickly figured out you couldn't just be a nightclub and survive. You had to have food and something else. So we would do food and then transition into this nightclub. The 15 bouncers would come and move all the tables and all the chairs and get it out of the way, and it turned into a thumping nightclub.
So the learning curve on this.
Yeah.
Just like, you're talking about, I had no idea it was going to be an ad agency. And then we look at the space and go, hey, a great place for a bar.
And know nothing about food.
Okay,
I parked cars, and I worked in a restaurant, as I valeted and I bussed, and I was never even like a lead server.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of dove into this and figured it out. And that, I always tell people, that was my business school.
Okay.
Because you learn pretty quick.
Yeah, you do.
Building a business, and reacting and changing. And we just, so it became this really popular restaurant too, like fine dining restaurant. And then so we're like, well, let's open up a restaurant across the street in the old Valley Cadillac building. That was Pearl.
Yeah.
And
so I have to think at this time, your success has to be catching the eye of people. And there are people, you'll know some people that are looking to invest money.
Yeah.
They really are. And, venture capitalists lose, I think, 80% of the time because if you're venturing into something, most people, the end game is to make money. Well, if you're only in it to make money, it's going to fail. Right. But if you're in it to actually provide entertainment, value to people's lives, something, you got a better success rate. You're one of the ones, how many bars, probably the odds are better than anybody, that it was a hit. It wasn't, it was a huge success.
Yeah.
Then you open the other. So are there people coming to you guys going, hey, I want to invest in, or no?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, but not as much as you'd think. And by that time, we had enough momentum and doing well enough. Yeah. It was funny, like at one point, this was back in the cash days.
Yeah.
My brother and I, it's like 4 a.m, and we had to buy cash machines, cash counters, with the dollar bills. And it was fun. We're back in this room. We have a couple cocktails. We're sitting across each other, just bagging up stacks and stacks of 20s. Like,
wow.
And then you had to go drop them in the deposit box because you didn't want to leave them in the building. And just kind of like, this is the greatest thing ever, you know? And this is coming from a kid that was making what, 80 or, $1.50 an hour in radio, nothing. And not that money was what was driving me, but it was kind of cool to be like, oh God, I can buy a car that actually works. So we had some success, and then we built on that and learned a lot through that process. Tony Galassi went and did his own thing, so we brought in Dan Eaton. Remember Dan Eaton? I'm cooking with Dan Eaton. Or I'm Dan and you're cooking with me on our news.
Oh, yeah.
But really accomplished, great, and a great dude. Yeah. Super nice guy. Accomplished chef. He came in and took over Tonic. No, pardon me. Yeah, he came over and took over Tonic. Then we opened up Pearl. He went over to Pearl and was our opening chef there and did an amazing menu. And then the current chef, Dan Martello, the current chef owner of Good Luck, who's super successful and super talented, took over at Tonic.
Okay.
So we had all these, great line of very good chefs, arguably some of the best in the city, which I think helps, if you get the right people, that old adage, you'll have success. So we did that, and we opened up Pearl, and then at that time my brother and I were having difficulties working together.
Why?
I just think a little bit of, he was my big brother by 5 years.
Sure.
I was the baby of 4. He was the oldest. So he's always been the boss.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think we're both competitive guys, and a little bit of sibling rivalry and figuring things out. I think we both look. It was time to part ways.
Yeah. It comes to that thing. Sure.
It does. And we had great success, but it was sort of like, okay.
Did it hurt the relationship in any way? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it was new to both of us.
Right.
Neither of us in retrospect, I don't think wanted to not get along.
Right.
And really, if we were able to get along better, we probably could have been even more successful. But that's just,
sometimes it's the best to preserve you want to keep the relationship of family.
Well, that was it. It was getting to that point where we weren't getting along, and you looked at, you tried to look at big picture. Let's just, let's move on. But listen, I see it. I have kids. My kids fight like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
My two older daughters are like, holy
yeah, I don't have any daughters, so I don't know what.
Well, it's just that's natural, I think, in families. I hear some families are like, "Oh, we're best friends. We all get along." I'm like, what the fuck is it? It's bullshit. There's something wrong here.
There is something wrong.
Or at least it makes me go to bed easier realizing that, or I tell myself like that's normal to fight, amongst each other. And of course we have our backs and stuff, and we're young and we don't. My brother and I was stubborn, I'm this kid that thinks he knows it all and don't tell me.
Right.
He had experience. So, we parted ways, and I went out and opened up JoJo. Actually,
Okay, so was JoJo you?
So that was a guy who's still a business partner of mine, Doug Wines.
Okay,
A friend of mine that was, older than me at the time, but super successful, both in waste management, not necessarily the company,
right?
Maybe, but he was in waste collection disposal, and then had some restaurants and stuff like that. So he approached me and said, "Hey, interested in doing this? We'd like to partner with you and turn around what was Chow."
Yes, I do
that?
remember Chow. Yes,
back in the old train depot there in Pittsford. So he approached me, and at that time, my brother and I were talking about going our separate ways. He was going to keep Tonic and Pearl, and I would go do this, and
so is that what happened?
that's what happened. Yeah. So then
did you get not trying to get too much in your business, but from a business side, do you get a buyout from that?
Well, we worked on a document as a buyout.
Okay. Yeah. So you get some money to, all right. So,
not really, but
I have
on
no
paper.
idea. I don't see. The thing is, like,
It's
learning.
coming soon.
I
Checks in the mail.
so
No, I'm
so
kidding.
you've got JoJo, but
Well,
let me
yeah.
just pause here for a moment.
Yeah.
Right now, you have the JoJo is you, right?
Yeah.
Then you had Black and Blue Pittsford. You have.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, there's Trata downtown in the
Yeah,
Armory.
right.
Then you've got the bakery,
Yeah.
the
Village Bakery.
Village Bakery.
Yeah.
That's it. That I knew was in Pittsford. That was a hit.
Yeah.
Right. That becomes a hit.
Right.
And then there's the Village Bakery expands. You have it also in the Armory next to Trata.
Yep. Eastview
Okay.
Mall.
Eastview
and
Mall,
Webster.
and then I knew Webster.
Yeah.
Then in addition, you opened up JoJo's Webster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
JoJo
then
Web.
I thought for a minute there was a Black and Blue in Buffalo.
Yeah. Actually, in 2007, we opened up a Black and Blue in Buffalo. So it's been there for quite some time.
That's an empire. For a guy who was going to open an ad agency, that's a fucking empire, Charlie. And that's
well, I don't feel nearly worthy of it being called an empire.
well, I mean,
but
when you
thank
look at it, I mean,
Well, I think
Who else
I
in
was,
this- and now the Boston.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is,
I don't have I didn't set out to build an empire. I didn't
No,
set
I know.
out, I don't have any goals of like I want to make this much money. I want to have this house. I'm going to do these things. I just want to I like doing things.
Yes.
I like challenging myself. I like setting goals and pushing and
because a lot of people get into something they have
Yeah.
know nothing about, which you've said you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then you get in and you go, fuck, that was good.
Yeah.
I was successful. And then we go to something.
Yeah.
You keep building more and more restaurants, which, I mean, there's all kinds of documentaries and dramas and reality shows
Yeah.
on the drama just
Right.
in a restaurant.
Yeah.
How have you been able to stay above the fray and keep everything successful and
Well,
expanding?
It on the outside it might look successful. There's been lots of challenges along the way, and I've learned a lot along the way, wins and losses.
Yeah.
I tell myself if I can win more than I lose, maybe 7 out of 10, or 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Win 6 games, lose 4 games. That's good
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I try to keep those losses, not evident, or or I'll cut them early enough
Yeah.
so that they don't take me down. So I've done a lot of things that haven't been successful, but I'll know when to bail.
Yeah. Well, failure is part of the.
Oh God,
You
I'm
have to-
still learning.
I
I'm
mean,
not,
I think everybody goes, well, failure. No, you have to. It's not. You can't. I don't believe you can look at it as failure. I really don't. I think at least for what is the big thing now, mental health, right?
Yeah.
We're all focused on mental health.
Mm-hmm.
At least the depression, I suck. I did.
Right.
I think you have to look at it as, okay, that didn't work. Let's pivot. I learned that doesn't work, but that doesn't mean this whole idea needs to be abandoned. We just need to pivot. And I think there's a big, I think fear. I think it's fearless people.
I think you're right. And, you know, I sometimes wonder, you know, you have every now and then that self-reflection. I don't reserve much time in my life for that.
Yeah.
Just because I think I was in a generation, and certainly my parents that have passed, my dad would be mid-90s. He was born in 29.
Your dad?
Yeah.
I had no idea. So your dad was as old as my grandparents, basically. Yeah. Okay.
Aquinas, U of R. But that generation, and I saw a lot of it because, you know, my mom was maybe, I think, 6 years his junior or 7 years his junior, but still kind of that same generation, and all her siblings, then my dad's siblings. But they just worked hard, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you bumped into adversity, it's sort of like, well, that sucks. Let's keep going. You know, there's not, you just, there wasn't an option.
Right.
And I wouldn't say an option to fail, because we failed a lot, like you said.
Yeah.
Along the way, you have wins and losses, but you just had to show up. You had to just keep going, figure out, learn, pivot, like you said.
Sure, but you know, just to have one restaurant and have that be successful is an amazing thing for many people.
Yeah.
And what are you, 20 years with some of these places? JoJo's close to that?
Yeah.
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 So to have a run like that, you know, that's great. I grew up in a land of have and have nots, Northern Dutchess County, Rhinebeck, New York.
Yeah.
Just
my mom, outside of the city.
Yep. My mom lives in Rhinebeck, and so they just opened a Merbeau. That's where we went for Thanksgiving this year and all. So it's right there. Yeah. And my neighbor ran one of the 10 best restaurants in America. He was a French chef named Charles Virion.
Wow.
We thought Charles was full of shit. It was, but Charles did, and people would find. Yeah. He wrote a cookbook. He was a private chef for Orson Welles. He ran that for 10 years and was very proud to have had. It was considered one of the 10 best restaurants in America at the time, and I'm forgetting the name of it.
That's amazing.
Le Pion, I can't even say. But that's a run, right? And there's a guy who was successful, private chef, did all this stuff, and then ran the restaurant. You got, and I don't feel like it's overstating saying empire, but you go from one, you hear the failures, you got JoJo, then there's Black and Blue. Black and Blue's fantastic, and has been another one that's lasted. Is that 20?
That is 18.
18.
Yeah.
All right, so you're right there. Great bar. I used to like to go and sit and get a big glass of wine and have dinner when I was married. And, you know, I went in there one year on Valentine's Day with my mom, which was a little creepy probably, but I think my wife at the time was out of town and she was in to watch the kids.
Yeah.
So I took,
Who's this guy?
I've gone there with on a man date. I think with like Greg Connors from Connors and Ferris. We went there,
nice.
Celebrated a birthday or something. So, I mean, that's there. Then you've got Trata, which is really a hip, trendy, fun place.
Yeah.
But why?
Well,
it's just the drive. That's what I'm wondering. What's the drive?
I just wanted to, you know, while I'm on this earth, I think, I just want to do something interesting, unique, something that challenges me. Even now, they're like, "How many are you going to build?" And now we're just focusing on Black and Blues.
Okay.
So that's the only one we're growing, and that's the only one we've been growing for some time, and that's the one that is in other cities. So all these other restaurants are just local.
So Black and Blue is where else?
Black and Blue is in Pittsford. It's in Buffalo.
Okay.
It's in Albany.
Oh, there is a Black and Blue in Albany.
Yeah, in Albany, right near the university in Colony, Guilderland area.
Right. It's not far from. I'm somewhat familiar. I was about an hour outside. Albany,
down 81.
Yep.
And then we're in Burlington, Massachusetts, which is kind of a northwest suburb of Boston, sort of their tech sector. They have a big Oracle presence there, SAP, Microsoft, all those sort of places. And then we're about, well, we're about 6 weeks away from our. We're shooting for March 1st to open our 5th Black and Blue, and this is in another suburb of Boston called Wellesley. which is really.
Do you own all these, or are they franchised out, or?
I own the restaurant. I don't own all the real estate.
Okay.
Where we can get the real estate, we will. But usually, we're trying to go in areas that are really busy, and that's old money. Most of those places have been, that good real estate is.
Yep. It's been held, and and it's one of these passive incomes if you do it right. Yeah. For the most part. I mean, there's going to be upkeep and maintenance and repairs and things. So, and then you also own buildings.
Well, yeah, and that's so I do have business partners, and when I was looking to grow this black and blue concept, I approached, a few people that I thought would be very helpful in growing this black and blue concept.
Right.
Because I still was learning and still didn't know a lot what I was doing. So I grabbed 3 people that had money and were successful. And they all 3 of them have different things they bring to the table. One was a CEO of Bird's Eye Foods for a period. Yeah. So he can give me the necessary structure that I need. And then there was someone that was involved in Wendy's. So they, the multi-unit management, they had over 100 Wendy's. So I learned from them.
Fox.
Yeah. Bob Fox, great dude. And then Dennis Mullen was the former CEO of Bird's Eye Foods, a local guy. And then the third one, Doug Wines, was entrepreneur, scrappy, still is, just so I got those guys together, and they're still with me.
Yeah.
And, I would carve out a little bit of equity to raise money that way. And then that was important, but also keeping them on because obviously they're smarter than me and more experience, and they would act sort of as my ad hoc, board
of directors.
Yeah, like that. And they're still so cool. Ever since I started back in 2005, they would never, and still don't, tell me what to do. They give me a little bit of advice, but they never say, don't do that, do this. They'd be like, all right, go for it. Yeah. If you're going to do it, do it.
Well, I think that there's, they're investing in you.
Yeah.
As much as they're investing in the restaurant or whatever, they're investing in you. They're investing in your vision.
Yeah.
And so you've got a likability about you that I think, and proven success.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm curious about with you, because you always came off as laid back. I mean, I'll say this, and I hope it's not embarrassing, but chicks were like, Charlie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you were kind of that guy, but always laid back, super cool.
Right.
But this inner drive, and you think of, everybody's will ask things like, what are the keys to success? But what is it that has made you think, and I know you say there's not a lot of time for self-reflection, that you would even impart to maybe your kids to say, hey, I did something and I knew nothing about it. Yeah. But look what I'm leaving the planet with. Not that you're leaving the planet, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. I definitely know what you're saying. And you do definitely self-reflect more when you have kids, right?
Sure you do. They're a marker in time.
And there's
like
parts
where
of
you are.
And you're like, don't do this, do this, but don't do this.
Yes.
So that definitely makes you think a little bit more like, where did I come from? What did I do? And there's no playbook for that either. Like how to raise a kid. So you're trying to figure out.
Let me ask you just an insert here as a parent. You found your own way.
Yeah.
Right. And your parents were probably hands off enough to let you do your own thing.
Yes.
My parents were kind of the same thing. I mean, I come from people that are educated. They have doctorates and masters. I went into radio.
Yeah.
My sister's got a doctorate in linguistics. She's married to a lawyer. Yeah. My brother's got a master's in economics, and he's running the Cliff House in Maine.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And friends with the Bushes and all this shit. And I'm now doing a podcast. So, but they let you kind of do your own thing, and I've kind of been that way with my kids too. Is I kind of go, I want you to skin your knee.
Yeah.
So you learn. I don't want you to fall on your
But don't
face.
you sometimes self-doubt, like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they're not necessarily me.
Yeah,
you know,
yes. All the time.
Yeah.
All the
We're
time.
still picking them up from school. I'm like, don't they have buses? And then I'm, you know, not self-reflecting, but am I doing this right? Because we had to find our way home. I hitchhiked to school every day, you know.
You did?
I did. Now, granted, it sounds scarier than it was, but it was kind of born out of being lazy. I didn't want to get up early, walk up to Brighton High School, connect bus
the
over
connecting
here
bus,
and go to McQuaid. So I would just, you know, get up, throw some stuff in a bag and run out and put my thumb out. And I'd hitchhike to school every day. But I was 80% of the time, it's parents driving their kids to school.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
and they're like, oh, this poor kid. Do you have parents? Driving. Now, hitchhike home from McQuaid was a little bit more colorful.
Yeah.
You know, that was a separate chapter.
Yeah, sure
that was like, you know, and if you were late coming out of school because you had detention, which when I was a freshman, I had a lot of detention.
Yeah, my son did too. When he was
Yeah.
it was justice under God.
Justice under God.
Yeah.
But then I made the hockey team when I was a sophomore, and you couldn't. So that got me, which is a good thing for sports, right? Keeps you disciplined. But hitchhiking home in the afternoon after the parents went by, now it's like, like now if I was a parent, I'd be like,
somebody out there cruising for
yeah, you can sit in front. You know, there's a lot of stuff in back now. You know, it's just some. But yeah, you think, are you teaching, training your kids the right way? And you know, the things I did. There's some aspects of it that I definitely would like to share with them.
Yeah.
Other aspects, I don't know if that's the right thing to do with them. Or like you said, I found my way. I don't know if these kids are going to find their way because they kind of, you know, they're certainly more spoiled than I was.
Sure they are.
You know, and
well, you always want to. I remember my dad saying to me that my generation would be the first one to not do better than their parents. Or had the greatest potential not to do better.
Right.
Because, you know, my grandparents married very young, did not go to college, and then both my parents did go to college, right? So they're going to be better. And then all of us went to college,
right.
and, you know, and so you just worry, like, and it's too easy. Everything's now easy. I always made the joke, like, we're never going to have a great guitarist again because they would sit in the room and just figure it out.
Right.
Now they're sitting in the room looking at porn. We're never going to have another Clapton, Jimmy Page. Fuck it, it's over.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the thing. And so I don't know, but they're of you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
They're of you, and I was showing you, like, my kid, he was determined to be on a track team and do this, and I said, before we started, I go, I didn't think he was that great of an athlete.
Right.
There was a lot of frustration. He was always trying to keep up with guys a little bigger than him.
Yeah.
He's about to set a school record.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Division II. All right.
Yeah.
I would have never, I didn't see that.
Right.
Right? So that's where I kind of go, maybe hands off a little bit.
Right.
Maybe the osmosis, they sucked it in.
Yeah,
and when
hopefully.
they need it,
I rely on that a lot too. By the way, did I move this camera? Is this a camera?
Yeah, it is. But
still on
it's focused mainly on you, so don't worry about it. This one isn't. No. No, I can choose to change them over here.
Yeah, so I don't know where we were.
But just the success. I mean, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
If you can sum it up in a way, right? Here you've got all this stuff. You have this vision. What is it that's driving you? And what would you say to somebody? Because you've met the challenges. Mm-hmm. You talked about it. You try to minimize the failures and things. But what is that drive for you?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I just actually, my son asked me yesterday. He's like, "Are you gonna, after this Wellesley one, are you gonna build more?" I'm like, "Are you done?" And I'm like, "No, I'm doing more. I'm gonna keep going." Because what else are you gonna do?
I don't know.
Just to keep working, and I'm still in that phase where I hate to say it, but you're a little selfish, because about your own success, because it takes a lot of focus and it has for years. But I'm starting to think a little bit more because you see, I'm 54. You can kind of see the finish line. And I want to, eventually I want to be able to do more, and leave the place a little bit better than I found it.
Yeah, interesting. What do you mean by that?
I don't know, just making a difference.
Charity work and all, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Or charity, funding something, yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Just leave the place better than you found it.
Very
and I don't know what that means, and it's nothing
well,
noble, but...
no, but that's a big McQuaid thing as well. You all had to do service, right? Senior projects and all that sort of stuff. But again, by osmosis, I think that's a great thing. I think I am very impressed by all the things you did and how you figured it out on your own. That's the part that I go, I find it motivating for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a year in. Somebody goes, you got your own business. I go, no, I don't. I have a hustle right now.
Right.
It's a hustle.
Yeah.
And I understand
own
it.
This.
No,
I'm like, no,
I don't.
The bank owns it, actually.
Yeah, well,
I'm renting
I
it.
even got that. I'm just, I'm piecing this together on shoestrings. But that's okay. And it's been fun. And at this point, I'm alone.
Right.
Right. Some of my guys are older. My other youngest guy is primarily with his mom.
Yeah.
All right. I got the time.
A little less.
Yeah, there's
responsibility.
Ton less responsibility.
Yeah.
You're not running to practices and picking people up and, getting rides and hustling.
But if you didn't need to do this,
yes,
would you still do it? Would you still do something?
So I always wanted to own.
You're not just going to hang out.
I left CMF because I had put into place with an agent that I would own what was then the break room. Yes. It would be me and Tommy.
Yep.
We would get paid one lump sum, and we would hire whoever we wanted.
Got it.
And Mike Doyle got elevated from Rochester to run the entire East Coast. And he pulled me in his office and goes, that'll never happen under my watch.
Thanks, Mike.
And I go, what? He goes, we don't do that in this company. And I go, well, yeah, you do. BJ. I had the same agent. BJ hooked me up with the agent.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, his last show is Friday.
BJ?
Yeah.
Really?
I think he did get renewed. I don't know what the story is. But
I thought you meant like retiring.
I don't know. I don't think it's
yeah.
There's a story. I'm trying to, I don't know. But the point is, so I left because I always wanted to own. And I wanted to do more than just radio in terms of talk. I wanted to turn it into, can we do interviews and focus things and go into production and own and build something.
Right.
And again, you get to a point in your vision where it's a little blurry, right? You get to a certain point, it's a little blurry. I can see this path clearly. I can see this, but I want to do this. I'm not sure exactly what that is yet. Right. And I don't know. I look at what you're doing and then I went, I see it. Nice. It was an ad agency, hey, this would be a great bar. And it was a great bar. Yeah. And that launched something that I don't think you ever saw coming.
Yeah. It's funny how life sort of pans out, right? But I think as long as you show up.
How important is attitude for you?
Well, attitude and work ethic and all that that's paramount. You know, it's way beyond grades. Because if you have a good work ethic, and you wake up each morning and even the tough mornings and you're like, you got to go. Yeah. You just got to work. And if you keep working and you say, today I want to work a little bit better, and then you build on that and you have some success and you keep working.
What is a day like for you then?
Well, I'll get up like 10:30 or something.
No, you don't. I mean, you said 9 o'clock and I'm like, okay. And then I figure, I don't know what time you're shutting it down, but you have a family.
I'm not in the restaurants much anymore.
Okay.
I'm more, right now I run the build out projects for the new restaurants. So I'm the general contractor, if you will.
Okay.
And involved in design and that kind of thing. So I spend a lot of time on that. And then I help, source key personnel and site selections and where are we going next, and then obviously all the finance and stuff. So in the restaurant, not all that much.
Yeah.
Which
but still JoJo's, all these are Trata.
Yeah.
The
and
bakery.
Trata and
This is amazing. It's just
well, you know what? It's funny. Sometimes I found that if you don't, if you just keep working, you train people, you hire good people, it just sort of
works out.
Happens.
Yeah.
Like, don't obsess. Don't stress out about, not being able to touch every little thing. And if you don't, it's going to fail. It just sort of happens. It's funny you say that, because sometimes I'll pull out of like Boston and be driving back. And I'll be like, I can't believe this motherfucker works. Like I'm not that smart. And I know it's not some secret recipe or sauce. And all of a sudden I'll be like, I can't believe this shit even works. This is hilarious. Like not hilarious, but sort of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And even I've been doing this a long time. I'll still, 4 days I'm confident, and I know where we're going, and I have a clear directive. I'm excited. And there's 3 days where you're like, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'll pull out of this new place in Boston and be like, I'll ask myself, like, why are you doing this, dude? This is just, and that self-doubt and stuff, but you just keep pushing. You trust your instincts. You trust your experience. You have you work hard.
Yeah.
You trust people, and you don't bite off too much.
Sure.
Make sure you can. And I realize now, as I get older, where I used to be like, yeah, let's do it. What about today? Yeah, let's sign me up. Sounds great. Pick them up. And now I'm like, no, I'm more of what's the exit plan? Where before it was, I didn't have an exit plan really.
Yeah.
Because you're so young. I can do anything I want. Now you're like, oh my God, 54.
I'll ask you, well, we can even end it on this one, because I'm sure you got a million things to do, but you ever stop and think of the lives you've provided for people by opening these restaurants, by having a standard, right? I always say, even to my sons, I go, you can look at someone and see what their standards are, right? I can see who what this person's into, what they eat, what they're putting in that body, how they spend their time. I mean, it's pretty quick. We can do that with anybody. You walk into any one of your restaurants and you can tell it's a higher standard. It's a higher standard of just appearance. And as you said with Tonic, everybody kind of raised themselves towards not trouble, because you went in there and this was the environment, and so we all meet the standard. So the standard is pretty high, but because of that, you have provided families. People have probably met at your restaurants. Huh?
Sorry.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Banged and maybe started families. And
I got a lot of babies.
But, built lives, bought houses, cars, put kids through school, all on an idea that was in your head that came to fruition and did that. You ever stop and think about that? That's a big fucking deal, man.
Well, it's cool. I'm happy to be part of it.
Yes.
But I also, I wouldn't.
Well, your ego's not big enough to do that. But I mean, I'm just saying.
You need them. To be able to do.
Well, it's a two-way street.
Right.
But I mean, I'm sure there's people that are managing restaurants that are being paid well and in charge of these things. And all of that came from an idea of, I'm not going to do an ad agency. This would make a great bar. I mean, to me, that's phenomenal.
But do you still, I still am, people ask, what are you doing? Or are you going to add more restaurants? And there's still part of my brain where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to, like, when I grow up, I'm going to do this. I still feel young and I still want to do other stuff. I'm happy I have success here.
What would be in other stuff?
I know that's a good question.
Yeah. But isn't that
if
great?
I didn't have kids, I think I would think a little bit more creatively on what would be something pretty cool to do, But when you have a family, obviously there's responsibilities and that sort of thing. And really, I think to be creative and, try anything and follow your passions and all that kind of stuff. That's important, but also if you find an area that you have some success in, you should focus on it, you know, and not necessarily bounce all over the place and not really commit or do something as well as you can. You know, if you're going to do it, my dad always said, do it to the best of your ability.
Were your parents alive to see a lot of this success? They early parts of Tonic, and then my father had like a bad stroke when we opened Pearl. Okay. So then he was, I don't think, cognizant of really what was going on. My mom actually just passed last year. She was, and she loved it because she was sort of an entertainer. I think that's what was in our blood. You know? She loved entertaining people. Yeah. She had to be
really when it comes down to ability, I got into radio because I love making. It sounded fun. Yes. Right. Yep. And then I actually got into radio because I wanted to work for a record company. Okay. Because I thought that was fun. Yeah. You know, let's do something cool and fun. I love rock and roll music. And then got in radio. I'm like, this is fun. This is kind of cool. And then, you know, anything I could do to not put on a tie and go sit in a cubicle and cold call people, I was going to work hard at finding a way to make that a living. And that's with the restaurants and the bars. That sounds like fun. This place would be cool. You know, like I don't say I wouldn't say everyone should do that, but I do like entertaining. I do like making people happy. I think some of my success in restaurants is I have an insatiable desire kind of to be liked. Yeah. You know, and make people happy. Yeah. You're like, look, he can juggle, you know, like, you know, like, and so, if a customer wasn't happy and they're like, oh, you know, you don't have Pepsi? Oh, interesting. We're out. I would run to a store and bring it back and pour them a Pepsi, for instance. And it wasn't because I was going to make money off of them or an ego. It's just like I wanted to make people happy. So I think that's helped with my success. Yeah. Is I want to do fun stuff and entertain.
Charlie, this has been fantastic. Thank you for coming in. And it's fascinating to me. And
must be running out of guests.
No. So
Billy, I'm happy for your success.
This will run over. Wow, we'll see.
Maranimal.
I'm still building.
I'll give you the rights to that, by the way.
To Maranimal?
To Maranimal.
Thank you.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity. I appreciate that. For Charlie Fitzsimmons, I'm Bill Moran. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for checking out Billified. And did you gift yourself? Did you call 585-206-8866 to get a fantastic certificate to use at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa? Maybe an overnight stay? Put it towards a beautiful spa treatment in one of the most luxurious settings you can be? Or maybe a delicious meal with live music and a great wine selection. Gift yourself. Call right now, 585-206-8866, and tell us why you deserve to be gifted. Gift yourself with Woodcliff Hotel and Spa and Billified.